is nothing to see here, people. According to a new report by the Office of the Inspector General, which is the OIG, Jeffrey Epstein did in fact kill himself. That's what they've asserted today. It has been nearly 4 years. They did an entire investigation and they detailed it out in this new report released today about why they think there is absolutely no foul play and that the sex trafficking ring blackmailer hung himself after all. So let's go over the report and see for ourselves. Okay, here's the report. The investigation review of the Federal Bureau of Prisons Custody Care and Supervision of Jeffrey Epstein at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, New York. Now, this is the Office of the Inspector General that did this investigation. They say that they do this alongside the DOJ and the FBI. They say on August 10th, I'm just going to read you some excerpts from this, from their investigation, and then you and I can come up with what we think actually happened according to their findings. It says on August 10th, 2019, in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, New York, Epstein was found hanged in his assigned cell with the Special Housing Unit. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, City of New York, determined that Epstein had died by suicide. The OIG conducted this investigation jointly with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with the OIG investigative focus being the conduct of BOP personnel, among other things. The FBI investigated the cause of Epstein's death and determined there was no criminality pertaining to how Epstein died. They go on to say BOP policy requires SHU staff to observe all inmates at least twice an hour, and the lieutenants conduct at least one round in the SHU each shift. BOP policy also requires multiple inmate counts during every 24-hour period. So they're supposed to go around observing a couple of times, and they're supposed to go and count all of the inmates, okay? The incident involving Epstein on July 23rd, they said, while in MCC, New York, Epstein was screened on numerous occasions by psychological staff, including a formal suicide assessment on July 9th. In the evaluations, he denied having thoughts of a history of attempted suicide. Psychological staff determined Epstein did not meet the criteria for psychological diagnosis. So they did not think he was suicidal starting July 9th. On July 23rd at 1:27 a.m., correctional officers responded to Epstein's cell where they found Epstein with an orange cloth around his neck. Epstein's cellmate told officers that Epstein tried to hang himself. Medical staff examined Epstein. They observed friction marks and superficial reddening around his neck and on his knee and placed him on suicide watch. Now, Epstein was removed from suicide watch on July 24th, so that's the next day, but remained under psychological observation until July 30th. Epstein first told MCC New York staff that he thought his cellmate had tried to kill him. Okay, that's what he said on that July 23rd incident. He's like, I didn't try to kill myself. My cellmate tried to kill me. But then he later recounted and said, no, I don't know what occurred. I don't want to talk about it. And he said, and then apparently they're saying that he later asked if he could be housed with the same cellmate. Another inmate housed in the same tier told the OIG that he heard Epstein's cellmate call for assistance and that Epstein's cellmate told him that Epstein tried to hang himself from the bunk bed ladder. So you've got the cellmate saying he tried to kill himself, and you've got some other guy overhearing things saying, yeah, I heard his cellmate calling out saying that Epstein tried to kill himself. And then you've got Epstein, though, first off saying, no, I didn't try to kill myself. He tried to kill me. And then he says, okay, never mind. He didn't try to kill me. I don't want to talk about what happened. And yeah, I'll go in the same cell with that guy again. So that right there is kind of suspicious, right? That entire incident. Following the July 23rd incident, the psychology department determined Epstein needed to be housed with an appropriate cellmate. And on July 30th, it sent an email over to New York employees informing them of this requirement. The warden at the time told the OIG that he selected a new cellmate for Epstein in consultation with BOP executive leadership, and that inmate remained Epstein's cellmate until August 9th. So they got him a new cellmate. And, for those of us that believe Epstein did not hang himself, the first two cellmates, the cellmate that he had plus the guy who corroborated the cellmate story, I mean, okay, maybe that was their first attempt, right? Maybe that was the people that wanted him dead. First, you'd go to the people inside jail and be like, jail's a dangerous place, so maybe we can get the guys in jail to off them. That's one thing to think about. So then he gets a new cellmate. And this cellmate remains with him until August 9th. He's supposed to have a cellmate at all times. It says the events of August 8th through August 10th. Now, remember, he killed himself on the 10th. On August 8th, the U.S. Marshals Service sent 2 emails notifying numerous MCC New York staff that Epstein's cellmate was being transferred to another facility on August 9th. However, no action was taken to ensure Epstein was assigned another cellmate. So he's supposed to have a cellmate. They get rid of his cellmate August 9th, and they have no person to be a cellmate. Also on August 8th, Epstein met with his attorneys at the prison, as he had on prior occasions, and signed a new last will and testament. MCC New York officials did not learn about the new will until after Epstein's death. So they're saying, this is kind of odd. His attorneys show up and he signs a will on the 8th. Okay, the following day, August 9th, Epstein's cellmate was transferred to another facility and he was not assigned a new cellmate. Additionally, on that date, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit unsealed approximately 2,000 pages of documents in civil litigation involving Ghislaine Maxwell, who was later convicted on December 2021 of conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse minors over the course of the decade. The documents contain substantial derogatory information about Epstein, and there is extensive media coverage of information in that unsealed documents. Also on August 9th, after meeting with the prison, okay, so just right there, first before we move on. So they're saying that on August 8th, he signed a will. That's odd, they're saying. So he must have known he was going to die if he's asking his attorneys to bring a last will and testament. Or it's possible that his attorneys knew he was going to die. I mean, a lot of people are in on, obviously, the Epstein blackmail conspiracy that he was engaged in. There's a lot of powerful people in this. And so they could get to anybody, right? I mean, they could get to anybody. So when they say that, they point to, well, this 2,000 pages of documents were unsealed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and that was going to be damning to Jeffrey Epstein. And so that's why he ultimately, they're saying that that's his motivation. Why not earlier? Why then? Well, because new information was coming out and it was going to be damning to him. So it says also on August 9th, after meeting at the prison with his lawyers, MCC New York staff allowed Epstein to make, in violation of BOP policy, an unrecorded, unmonitored telephone call before he was returned to his cell. Although Epstein said he was calling his mother, she had been dead for 9 years. So in actuality, he called someone with whom he allegedly had a personal relationship. He called his girlfriend, who was not Ghislaine Maxwell, it's some other woman. This other woman said that the conversation was pretty normal, that they just talked about normal things. But who knows, right? Because it was unrecorded and it was unmonitored. So we don't really know what they talked about. We're just knowing what she's talking about. And again, people could be threatening her if he said anything to her. These people are powerful. They're able to get to anybody. It says at approximately 8 p.m. on August 9th, inmates were locked into their cells for the night, including Epstein, who was without a cellmate. A search of Epstein's cell following his death revealed Epstein had excess prison blankets, linens, and clothing in his cell, and that some had been ripped to create nooses. So right there, that's weird. Why did he have excess clothing and bedding in his cell? So he had no cellmate and he had all this extra bedding? Okay. Then it says only one SHU cell search was documented on August 9th, and it was not of Epstein's cell. BOP records did not indicate when Epstein's cell was last searched. The OIG also found that SHU staff did not conduct any 30-minute rounds after 10:40 p.m. on August 9th, and that none of the required SHU inmate counts were conducted after 4 p.m. on August 9th. Count slips and round sheets were falsified to show they had been performed. So nobody, they were supposed to do these rounds. They were supposed to search cells and do the counts. They were supposed to do those multiple rounds. They didn't do any of it. And in fact, the staff falsified records, pretending like they did it, and they didn't do it. Okay, so he just happened to have extra bedding in his cell. He just happened to not have a cellmate that day. And they just happened to falsify records claiming they did rounds and claiming they did inmate counts when they didn't. Okay. Then it says on August 10th at approximately 6:30 a.m., 2 SHU staff on duty, CO Tova Noel and material handler Michael Thomas, began delivering breakfast to SHU inmates. Noel unlocked the door to Epstein's SHU tier. When Thomas attempted to deliver breakfast to Epstein through the food slot in his locked cell door, Epstein did not respond to Thomas's verbal commands. Thomas unlocked the cell door and saw Epstein hanged. Thomas told the OIG that when he entered Epstein's cell, Epstein had an orange string, presumably from a sheet or a shirt, around his neck that was tied to the top portion of the bunk bed. Epstein was suspended from the top bunk now listen to this. Epstein was suspended from the top bunk in a near seated position with his butt approximately 1 inch to 1.5 inches off the floor. So he hung himself in seated position and could easily stand up at any minute. I am sorry, but I really think that in those very last moments when you're about to die, your body goes into fight or flight mode and you try to save yourself. It's just instinctual. If you could put your feet underneath you, you would. You would have stood up. You're not going to just consciously let yourself die. Your body is not programmed to do that. You would have stood up. So the fact that he was found hanging himself with his butt 1 inch off the floor, are you kidding me? He could have easily just knelt, stood up. No, okay, that right there. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. Email me, tell me if you think that, if you know of somebody who died like this, they legitimately killed themselves in a way where they weren't going to then save themselves at the last minute. So Thomas said he immediately ripped the orange string from the bunk bed and Epstein's butt then dropped to the ground. Thomas then lowered Epstein's body to the floor, began chest compressions until staff members arrived a minute later. Shortly thereafter, outside medical personnel arrived and took over the emergency response, eventually removing Epstein to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. On August 11th, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner performed an autopsy and determined that the cause of death was hanging and the manner of death was suicide. Blood toxicology tests did not reveal any medications or illegal substances. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy told the OIG that Epstein's injuries were consistent with suicide by hanging and that there was no evidence of defensive wounds that would be expected if his death had been a homicide. So Epstein did not have marks on his hands or broken fingernails or debris under them or contusions to his knuckles that would have evidenced a fight or other than an abrasion on his arm likely due to convulsing from hanging bruisings on his body. So basically, if you're an expert assassin, you're not going to kill somebody in a way where they're going to scratch you. If you know what you're doing and this is your job and you're tasked with offing Epstein in this prison, you're not going to allow him to mark you up in any way, right? So there wouldn't be defensive wounds. Then it says there's limited available video evidence, right? Oh, gee, we don't have anything to see here. Recorded video evidence for August 9th and 10th for the SHU area where Epstein was housed was only available from one prison security camera due to a malfunction of MCC New York's digital video recorder system that occurred on July 29th. While the prison's cameras continued to provide live video feeds, recordings were made for only about half the cameras. MCC New York's personnel discovered this failure on August 8th. Oh, that's coincidental, but did not get it repaired until after Epstein's death. Another coincidence. As detailed in the report, like many other BOP facilities, MCC New York had a history of security camera problems. So, only half the cameras worked, and guess what? They didn't record anything, really. I mean, most of the cameras, they were just live feeds. There's no real recording. Then it says the available recorded video footage, because remember, they say, well, half of them, we got some recordings. Okay, well, what did you get? They say, well, the available recorded video footage from one SHU camera captured a large part of the common area of the SHU and portions of the stairways leading to the different SHU tiers, including Epstein's cell tier. Thus, anyone entering or attempting to enter Epstein's SHU tier from the SHU common area would have been picked up from that video camera. However, Epstein's cell door was not in the camera's field of view. So if they walked through the common areas, we would have caught them. Well, again, what if you're an expert and you're able to elude the cameras and walk in a way where the cameras don't catch you or get in a different way, right? So basically they're saying, look, based on all of this evidence that he signed a will the day before, 2 days before, the day before he was allowed an unmonitored phone call. That's odd in of itself. Because the 2000 documents were unsealed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Because of all that, the guy just hung himself. And that's what they're concluding. They're saying that's the reason. This is why we think he did it, even though we don't have, any video evidence of anything because they weren't working. And yeah, the staff didn't make their rounds. They just so happened to not make their rounds. They just so happened to falsify that they made their rounds. The cameras just so happened to stop working on the 8th and he dies the 10th. He just so happened to have extra bedding in his cell, and he just so happened to hang himself in a way that he could have saved himself, that his body could have kicked into fight or flight, and he could have saved himself at the last minute. And there's also a question about the number of bones that were broken in his neck. It was just for his body weight, it wouldn't have broken in that many spots as it did. So it looked like there was maybe more force that was applied in order to kill him. So that's the report they came out with today. They basically said, nothing to see here, folks. Jeffrey Epstein, after our 4-year investigation, we have concluded what we always have concluded and what we always were going to conclude is that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. And don't you dare think any other than that. All right, are you concerned about the future of your retirement savings? Inflation is causing the value of the dollar to diminish, putting your savings at risk. However, there's a solution to safeguard your savings from inflation and market volatility. Invest in gold with Birch Gold. Gold is a reliable asset that has maintained its value for centuries, making it an excellent choice for diversifying your portfolio and protecting your savings. Over the long term, gold has even outperformed the stock market. So consider this. If you had invested $10,000 in gold back in 1970, your investment would be worth a whopping $500,000 today. With Birch Gold, you have the opportunity to roll over your IRA or 401k into a physical gold IRA. Your gold will be securely stored in a trusted vault, providing you with peace of mind. The process is straightforward and effortless. The Birch Gold team will guide you every step of the way. Just visit birchgold.com/Kim to receive your complimentary info kit. An expert will be in touch to assist you throughout the entire process. So don't miss out. Visit birchgold.com/Kim and get your free info kit.